Hey everybody, how are you? Thursday, 4:15, everyone's making it? Yeah, everyone looks awake? Good, well, I want to really appreciate you taking the time to attend the session. So my name's Justin Graham. I run product management and product marketing for the AWS Marketplace. And I have a co-presenter here, James Crabb from Boeing, and we're gonna talk you through how you can accelerate projects in your environments looking at and using AWS Marketplace. So I'm gonna give a brief introduction of Marketplace and give you a little demo of the Marketplace just so you can see how it works and how it can potentially help you. And then I'm gonna hand over to James, who's gonna talk you through how Boeing is using AWS as well as how Boeing has used AWS Marketplace as well. So a couple of quick kickoff questions. How many folks in the room are familiar with AWS Marketplace? Okay, a little over half. How many of the folks in the room work for a software vendor? Okay, about a third. Okay, how many folks are in the aerospace industry? I'm asking that for my co-presenter. No, nobody. Okay, excellent. So a good mix of folks. So we can touch on a couple of different areas that sort of touch on the software vendor side as well as some of the other pieces. And hopefully for those of you who are familiar with the AWS Marketplace, actually for those folks who are familiar with the Marketplace, how many of you have actually subscribed to and deployed software out of the Marketplace? Okay, all right. So we're going to change that hopefully after this session. So the AWS Marketplace is an e-commerce retail website that lists software from software vendors and makes it available for customers to come subscribe to that software and deploy that software into their AWS instance. We list over 2,300 listings from over 800 software vendors today in our marketplace, and that number is growing literally every week. The service is 3 years old, so 3 years ago there may have only been 10 or 20, and we've gotten to 2,300 at this point. And the goal is to continue to increase selection. Within the marketplace, we also talk through and serve software vendors. We want to make sure that for customers, we're increasing that selection so that when you want to come and subscribe to software, let's say you have a project that's in flight that needs a web application firewall or a load balancer, or you need a storage array or software NAS or software-defined networking, and that's holding your project up, we want to be the place you come to accelerate that project and get that project kicking off again. So the more selection, hopefully, the more ways that we can help you get that off the ground. When you come in, so you utilize your AWS account to subscribe to the software, and I'll give you a little bit of a demo a bit later on how that works. But as a customer, whenever you do subscribe, the usage is metered in the same way that you're used to with your other AWS services. It's metered on hourly, and the hourly usage shows up on your AWS bill in a combined fashion with all of your other AWS usage at the end of the month. And you pay that single bill just like you would pay the bill that you normally do with all of your other AWS services. So it's really aiming to bring all of the benefits and the power of cloud computing to your software subscription, your software purchases, and making it easy for you to run that software afterwards. When we talk about pricing models, again, we want to bring that consumption-based pay-as-you-go benefit to software, but we also offer some additional options there. We do have free trial support, so when software vendors list with us, they can choose to support a free trial, and I'll show you what that looks like on the website in a minute. Of course, the core offering is hourly, but we do also offer 2 additional types, monthly and annual. Some software vendors, and we've heard from our customers that customers want longer commits. So hey, I know I'm going to run this workload 20 hours a day or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the whole year. So I want to pay for it for the whole year and then receive a bit of a discount. And we have software vendors that support that model. So you can actually choose to subscribe as an annual, and some software vendors have given as little as 2 or 5%, but we have some software vendors that have given 50% discounts over an annual price for a year. So that depends on the vendor, but you can choose to make that commitment up front and then pay for that software in that way. But most of our customers today are running an hourly model and paying as they go. So as much as or as long as the instance is running, that's being metered hourly, and then they're getting charged for that. But when the instance is not running, then they're not getting charged, and that operates in the same way as their EC2 instances or the other services that they're using. So those are a couple of the pricing models and the options that we make available to you today. So I'm going to give you a quick demo of the AWS Marketplace and show you both how it works and how easy it is to get things deployed. So the AWS Marketplace is a website that's off of the main homepage of AWS. So aws.amazon.com/marketplace gets you to the homepage, which you see here. We categorize our software into 35 categories that you can see listed on the left-hand side, as well as featured products and popular products, as well as operating systems on the right-hand side. When we click into a category, you'll see featured products for that category. In this case, for business intelligence, TIBCO, MicroStrategy, Tableau, and Matillion, but there's also many others that we list as well. And you can choose and see a couple of things right from this point. We can see that TIBCO, as well as MicroStrategy and Matillion, offer a free trial. So that lets you know that we can get those kicked off pretty quickly with no commitment in terms of the software licensing, so we can take a further look at that. Once we dive into a particular listing, there's a number of pieces of information that are available to you. One is the region availability. So software vendors choose which regions that the software can be deployed in, and you'll see all of those here, and you can actually choose the region. And as you switch the region and the pricing, you'll see that will provide price estimates both for your software usage as well as your EC2 usage, and combine those together. If you do want to choose annual, you can also see what the annual price is and what the discount level that you'll receive for choosing annual looks like. There's other pieces of information around version as well as the delivery method, which is an AMI for deployment, and what other services are required to use the software, in this case EC2 and EBS. And we also have other recommended products that can be used in conjunction or as an alternative to this product as well, that are listed within the area. Now, if I want to continue to go through and subscribe to this product, I can just click continue, and I'm presented with a couple of options for subscription and launch. So how many folks have actually bought anything off of Amazon.com at any point in their life? Everybody should raise their hand here. Oh, come on, there's one, you really yeah, okay, thank you. You bought, yes. So we brought over the idea of a one-click launch from our Amazon.com retail site, which is a quick way to get the the base things configured and then get the product launched and in use as quickly as possible. So the first option is software pricing, and you can change that. And you'll notice if I change the applicable instance types, you'll see on the right-hand side over here and over here that cost estimations will change as you change the instance type that you're going to deploy to. If the software vendor has listed multiple versions, you'll see those versions here. And we do, the vendor does get the choice to keep or not keep multiple versions, but we encourage the keeping because we know some folks may be running workloads on older or legacy versions of software, and we want to make it easy for those to be migrated over. You can choose your instance type, and then some more advanced settings around the VPC if you have one, or in the subnet if you have which one subnet you want to deploy to, as well as security groups and key pairs. So since key pairs are by region, I can I don't have a key pair in this area, so I need to go create one. So I can actually deep link into the console, and I've chose Frankfurt, and I can create a key pair directly from here. And then use that key pair for this. So all I have to do is come back, refresh my browser, and I now have a key pair that is ready and able to be configured for use for deploying the software. So we're really trying to help get all of the requirements done easily. Now, if you also want to, or in addition, you want to do a more manual launch, you can choose manual launch and configure a certain set of options, but then launch later through the EC2 console if you're doing some more advanced configuration, or you don't want that software running immediately. You want to run it at a later time. So we give you that flexibility on both ends of the deployment. So if we want to do a one-click launch, we can just accept the terms, and the subscription goes through, and a couple of other things happen. So we also heard from customers that, and a lot of times with more advanced software titles, you may want assistance. You may want to call a solutions integrator or a consulting partner to help you with the configuration, give you deployment advice, and we've actually partnered with ISVs where they have suggested key certified partners that they've certified for their software that are also certified on AWS that get presented at the end of the subscription if you want that help. So that is what you're seeing right here, and if you want to view more partners, you can do that, and we give you all the contact information to contact those partners as well if you want that assistance. So that is, the demo of how this works and the subscription process works for Marketplace on the website. In addition to that, we also have a presence in the EC2 console. So if you're used to working, doing a lot of your work in the EC2 console, you can actually browse and subscribe to Marketplace products from within the EC2 console. So we see here you can actually go to the Launch Wizard, and when you're in the Launch Wizard, you can see AMIs that are quick start, which are usually operating systems or some base things that you need to get started. But there's also an AWS Marketplace experience here where you can search for products. So we'll go ahead and search for TIBCO, and we can see TIBCO here. I can select it. I can see all of the price estimation. I can continue with that subscription and then move along the Launch Wizard and configure the instance and all of the other options to deploy that software. So just a couple of quick ways that you can use the AWS Marketplace and how easy it is to get started, especially building a BI stack. We also have databases and all of the pieces of that stack that you need to get started with a BI project. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jim to talk to you a bit about how Boeing is using AWS, as well as how they're using the AWS Marketplace.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to hear us talk at the end of the day, next to last session. So hopefully we're all awake and ready to go. So I've got a little bit of a story to tell you about how we get there, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Boeing Company as we go through this so you can kind of see from our world. My name's Jim Crabb, and I'm a senior product manager within the Boeing Company in a group called Commercial Aviation Services. So developing all the software, services, and products that help support the operation of the aircraft after they've been acquired by our customers. So the Boeing Company, I like to start a talk and ask how many people flew here. Being that we're in Vegas, I'm going to guess almost all of you flew here. How many people, show of hands, flew on a Boeing aircraft that they know for sure? How many don't know what aircraft they flew on? That's okay. Okay. So yes, we're in a duopoly on the planet. We're a 100-year-old company. So Boeing was started in 1916 by Bill Boeing. He apparently went to the World's Fair in Seattle on Lake Washington, flew in a biplane at that time made out of wood. So if you can imagine sitting in an aircraft completely exposed, sitting on the struts, because back then they didn't have two seats, immediately fell in love with that, went into producing aircraft. Next year, Boeing will celebrate its 100th year as a company building commercial aircraft. To give you an idea of the scope and scale of Boeing and the things we build, we're a global company, 83,000 people in the Boeing commercial airline market. The company has two parts that you may be familiar with. One is Boeing commercial aircraft, which most of you flew in on a Boeing commercial aircraft. That's what most people are familiar with. We also have Boeing defense, space, and satellites and security. We do that on the military side of the business as well. So big company, global, old company, manufacturing company, building a very highly technical product. The area that I work in supports that Boeing commercial aviation sector. And what we provide to our customers is what we refer to as the Boeing Edge. So within that, we've organized ourselves around the services that our aircraft operators need to operate the aircraft we manufacture in the most optimal fashion possible for them so that they can maximize their margins, because the airline industry is a very tough business. So as you can see on the screen, we have material services, fleet services, flight services, information services. I work within the information services part of the business, which is primarily the software and information technology side. You'll sometimes see this referred to as digital aviation. So how does the Boeing Edge get delivered? Well, we have obviously specific OEM knowledge. We do, through our subsidiaries, supply full fleet solutions to the market. So we also have subsidiaries like Jeppesen, which fall under commercial aviation services, and that's one of the companies that I work a lot with, and they do a lot of the flight navigational things. We are constantly innovating as a company. So a lot of that is around the fantastic products that we build and the quality and the safety and the security that you guys all rely on when you travel in the air. Life cycle commitment, we have products and services that cover from the purchase of the aircraft all the way through the retirement of the aircraft and maintaining the aircraft. So a very wide breadth of portfolio of services, which gives us another edge in that we can actually go end-to-end with an enterprise on the solutions that we provide to them to maintain that aircraft. We have integrated services and products internally, and then we also integrate with third parties as well. And of course, the people that work at Boeing are incredibly passionate about what they do. The commitment to quality and time spent is incredible. In my time at Boeing, I came from the software world. I've been there coming up on my 5th year. The average tenure that I've seen is as much as, I'd say, 15 to 20 years. The company really takes care of its staff. The company also last year, as some of you may have read, we have a $503 billion backlog of aircraft orders. We did $90 billion in revenue. We service about 10,000 aircraft that are out there in the market today. So it's a sizable business at scale on a global level. So I always like, as a product manager, to start with the problem statements and the challenges that we face and how we try and serve our customers. And then that'll bring us to the marketplace and how we started to use the cloud as one of those things that we wanted to leverage. So airlines are seeking new levels of operational efficiency, and it's a very tight business. So as many of you may or may not be familiar with, the traffic growth has picked up. They're making more money now because fuel prices have come down. But it's still a very lean business, and so this is a time for a lot of airlines to try and catch up. 40% of their overhead is actually with fuel, so it's a very volatile business, and the margins can be very tight. Profitability is low, but it's improving, so they are starting to pick up some capital, but they're using this to now prepare themselves for the next growth curve and when those financial markets might tighten up on the fuel side. So it's a new landscape for enterprises in general out there. Boeing's no different, neither are our customers. With the proliferation of data, the cloud, which we're all here for, and as usual, this is my second reInvent, and I'm always floored by the things they announced. A lot around security, a lot around how does a traditional enterprise transfer to the cloud, what's that journey like, and enabling that to take place. Very much needed in the enterprise space. Another key factor along with cloud, you heard this morning when Werner was talking about Internet of Things and mobility, and starting to view, I like to look at it as you view your mobile device now as actually a sensor. So where are you, what are you doing, what's your location, crunching that data in the cloud to deliver insight to your organization. And then, of course, the consumerization of technologies makes you now take things that used to be very technical in a B2B world. You have to start designing more from a B2C perspective as well. So these are all the challenges that I think any big enterprise faces in absorbing this technology and kind of moving to the next level. So our vision is to create value for our customers by enabling what we refer to as the digital airline, which is allowing them to make the best decisions and operate at peak efficiency to avoid disruption. So how many of you ever been in a delayed flight situation? Raise your hands. Show of hands. Yeah, okay. So that's a lot of what my organization deals with, is how to avoid those, or if it takes place, how do we recover quickly? Because the airline business is a lot like any transportation or logistics business. I like to think of it, a good analogy would be like a taxi company. They make money when those airplanes are moving and we're all inside of them. When the aircraft is sitting still, they actually lose money. Now, there's a lot of logistics that we don't think of as passengers when there's a delay like that. The aircraft have to be swapped out. If the aircraft sits at the terminal too long, then you can create congestion in the air, which causes other airlines to have to move flights around, or that airline to move flights around. Passengers that have connecting flights or international flights have to be moved. You've got your crew that has to be moved, so those stewardesses and the pilots, they have to be adjusted as well. There's a lot of government oversight and regulation that comes into play. So in order for our customers to be successful and for the aviation ecosystem to be efficient and lean, we have invested and provide value to our customers in digital solutions that help them to be effective. So an example of some of our solutions are wrapped around the different areas I kind of talked to in those pain points for our customer base, right? So there's maintenance. So every time your aircraft flies, it's amazing how our customers, how quickly and how tight they are and efficient they are in maintaining. There's service checks that are done every time you get onto an aircraft by a maintenance crew that's underneath the plane. And they check to make sure everything's safe. They might do some small repairs or adjustments before the aircraft can take off. And so we enable that with things like mobile device applications that make those checks faster or more efficient. We have different processes we supply and software applications that allow them to get the materials and the know-how that they need to operate. Fuel costs, we have applications that help them with their fuel efficiency out of the flight side of our business. So that's everything from flight planning, fuel optimization, crew management solutions. We also work with the actual airports with some of the applications that we build. And then we also have a large business around the parts and the manufacturing and supplying of those parts through a supply chain that has to be very quick and very efficient, because aircraft parts are expensive and you don't want to have a large inventory. So we actually have to move that inventory and make those parts available. And we assist our customers with a wide variety of services, from as much as some airlines, for instance, would like to take on and do a lot more maintenance themselves. There's an entire ecosystem that we call maintenance and repair organizations. So think of that in an average consumer world. That's like your mechanic shop that takes care of your car. Like, you could change your own oil, but then there's some fixes you take to, let's say, a Les Schwab or a mechanic to fix. And then there's some things that you come back to the dealership for. And so we cover that entire breadth of services for our customers as well. So a key driver as we move forward, and you saw that again today when Werner was talking about the Internet of Things. So our aircraft have been highly digitized for quite some time. If you think about your car and the computers running on your car and the amount of data that they're now accumulating off your car, like we heard from BMW this morning as well, and Tesla, right? The aircraft is not any different. It's got a lot of sensors, and the new aircraft in particular, the 787, gives us more data and more insight than before. And that was done by design so that we could drive more efficiency into operating that aircraft. In fact, the 787 is 20% more fuel efficient than the aircraft that it replaces. So as we moved into the software space, we've been in that space for a while. So when I say we, I mean my group looking at these technologies. I work within the Platform Solutions group. And Boeing being a very innovative company, we experiment and try all kinds of technologies all the time so that we can remain on the cutting edge. So AWS, I've been on a journey over the last 3 years owning a team of brilliant engineers and developers that have helped me stand up the company's first platform as a service offering in the public cloud space. And it's been a fantastic journey, and my team is awesome. So AWS solved some key problems and was a very interesting use case for us. It solved key challenges around rapid innovation, and you hear that a lot here at re:Invent. It allowed us to do some of the things we've done in the past. For instance, we've dealt with big data since, we had guys with slide rules and pencils and pens designing aircraft at one point, right? So we've dealt with data for quite some time. So the cloud brings these new opportunities to us to crunch data even faster and in a more efficient manner. So that's something that's very intriguing to us and helps us to do our job better. So the cloud is something that definitely plays into our future. So I always like to try and help out. I love out re:Invent. It's an exchange of knowledge. That's partly why my voice is already gone after being here since Monday, is talking with your peers, sharing ideas, and understanding use cases. So some of you have probably already gotten to the cloud. Some of your enterprises might be thinking about that journey. And so I just wanted to lay out here kind of the path that we went on. And I find that it's kind of common when I talk to my peers. We initially started with a proof of concept that kind of shows the value of the cloud to our leadership around a use case. In our example, we use the cloud to stand up some mobile applications and to get those out the door very fast, and to do it faster in a faster time frame than we had done in our traditional software development cycle. So that was a great use case, and it demonstrated the power of the cloud and how we could actually move faster and get value created and into the market at a rapid pace. That led through that experience, we then started to look at, okay, how do we leverage APIs and services to be reused across the organization and get even faster than we were before? So that led to the development of a cloud platform that we could leverage to share and build better applications. That journey, as you go through that, you start building more and more of the APIs and using the managed services and capabilities out of the cloud, as well as some of your own services that you end up creating. Once you move to that stage, you start to now have even more analytics, not just about the usage of your software and applications, but you start, and in our case, the aircraft, for example, you start to have the ability to study the service usage and how things are being leveraged by your teams and by the various solutions that you put in the market. And then you get to this state where you're doing rapid innovation. So the swim line on the top is kind of the high-level view. The golden icons down on the bottom are kind of what you learned at each one of those steps, right? So as we started with the proof of concept, we had a learning curve, and my engineers and my architects had to wrap their heads around a lot of the core principles that you have to kind of rethink in how you build your systems, like building for failure, for example, and decoupling things. So that was the beginning of that voyage. You start selecting tools, architecture, and use cases now. Once you start to look at how you can reconfigure and build your architecture, you start to rethink some of your tool selection and how you integrate that into your overall solution. The APIs and services give you the basic building blocks for reuse and innovation, so now you start creating more mashups, right? KPIs and analytics start to show you what services have more value and what or more use case around them. So you start thinking about, how do I make those things more robust so that they can handle that load? And then, of course, you get to new products and services, is because now your enterprise is positioned to very quickly recombine solutions or develop custom solutions in some cases for customers at a much lower cost than a traditional software cycle. So the AWS Marketplace gives some great value, and I'm going to walk through actually some use cases. These are the high-level value statements, and I know you can find some of this online, but of course, coming from an enterprise, I have a slightly different spin on it probably. Software product selection. Many of us in an enterprise, you go out and you look at different tools, and you have to make evaluations. The AWS Marketplace allows you to try something at a very low cost point without having to dedicate to an annual contract, for example. So this gives you the opportunity to kind of kick the tires on a new software application very quickly and at a lower cost point if you want to do a proof of concept. So that's a key value statement if you want to experiment or try a new solution out. Proof of concepts, the ability to quickly grab infrastructure, throw an AMI onto an EC2 instance, and actually build a proof of concept is an incredible game changer for an enterprise. And that the time that you normally have to wind your way through a traditional enterprise process to get your hands on infrastructure and software to go and experiment, you can now literally stand up a proof of concept to illustrate your point. So as a product manager, instead of having to write about the idea, in many cases you could actually stand something up and demo the idea at a low cost point. And if you want to, you can blow it away so there's no more cost to the organization. So the key value that I've found out of this is when you decrease the cost of failure, you increase the amount of innovation that's possible, because now it's incredibly cheap to try something out. So you can move a lot faster with that. Of course, CapEx versus OpEx, if you haven't heard about that in other sessions, it's a service, so it's much easier to get capital around it versus having to invest into infrastructure and plan that into your annual planning. And depending on your organization and where your company is hosted, there might be tax advantages around that kind of a thing. Of course, you can measure the usage now of the licensed products that you buy. That's another key value. Now that you're hitting it as a service, you can see how much you're actually utilizing out of that software service. So for many traditional vendors, I think there's a lot of opportunity for disruption in how we actually sell as software. And here I'm speaking outside of Boeing, but as a software person, right? We have to rethink how we sell our products into the market. Tying your organization up to an annual contract on a fixed licensing fee may not make as much sense when the innovation cycle is now 6 months or less for new products in a particular area. So you have to rethink, how do you sell your products? What do you buy? One of the other selling points for me with the AWS Marketplace is that, and I now, when I evaluate product opportunities as a product manager, I start to look at things differently. I think a traditional IT approach is, what are the capabilities of product A against the capabilities of product B, right? And then you kind of walk through your little POC and you see how those line up, and then you go through your cost analysis and you end up procuring a tool. Well, in today's world, I think with the increase in Moore's Law and the speed of innovation, you have to start looking at things of how quick is that company iterating? How fast are they growing? Because something with more capability in product A versus B, but if their innovation cycle is very long and slow, B might actually be a better bet for you, right? Because they're going to iterate faster and they're going to be able to grow with you quicker. Another thing that I look for, and this plays right into the marketplace, is what's the size of the ecosystem surrounding the company? That's a very important thing to me personally, because I don't want, especially in my industry where everything is very unique, every airline is different how they operate. In fact, earlier when I was talking, I said, how many of you flew in on a Boeing aircraft, right? A lot of you raised your hands, you flew in on a Boeing aircraft. But you did fly in on multiple operators. So you got to think, what's the competitive if Airline A has all Boeing aircraft and flies the same routes as Airline B, their operational services and how they operate their business is really a prime competitive advantage between those two airlines. So I look for the ecosystem around it. I have to be very adaptable. I have to service a very broad market with very unique use cases, and in some cases, some very legacy technology. So the ability to very quickly adapt and use, if you like to think in terms of building blocks to quickly reorganize a solution or to customize a solution, is very important to me. So if I don't have a broad ecosystem around a product selection, then that means that I might have to build something. And if I have to build it, then I have to maintain it for a long time. So it's much better to me if there's a broad ecosystem. That decreases the odds as I use that system of me having to build. So that's a great value proposition in looking at. So how fast does a company move? How big is the ecosystem, right? You always are going to look at the capabilities, but then what's the rate of speed for innovation? So those are the things I kind of look at. And Marketplace is a key enabler in that. Like I said, I can quickly try something. The cost of failure is low. I have a built-in ecosystem. These guys are growing Marketplace at a phenomenal pace, so more options are becoming available all the time, every month. The other advantage, really quickly, cloud neutral. As the Boeing Company being as large as we are operating in multiple clouds. So I don't want to offend Amazon on that. But personally, I obviously deal with the Amazon cloud a lot. That's the one that's my personal preference. Using Marketplace gives you a little bit of flexibility on that because you're now using some of your traditional vendors. So if you are having to play in another cloud, then you can buy that same COTS product in that cloud potentially as well, right? So there's a little bit of flexibility there. Pricing flexibility, we saw that earlier on. Really like how you can choose how much you want to buy something. But you'll see that in some of my use case. And then architectural flexibility, very quick to swap things out. So I'll just go through, I have 3 use cases that I'll kind of drive through that I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, right? So software product selection. So a good example is like SAP HANA, right? In a traditional world, when you evaluate a project or you want to do a proof of concept, you would have to go to that vendor and get some kind of a licensing agreement to use that software product for your 90-day POC. So in that instance, let's just say rough ROM in an enterprise, let's say it's $100,000. I'm just using, these numbers don't reflect, and I have to be very careful about that because we're a very security conscious company, so the names I show are not necessarily things we've done or not. Can't really commit to that. And the numbers I show, can't commit to those. But in general, if you do a POC for 90 days, and you have to go license the product, you have to spin up an engineering team, you have to procure some hardware, right? That's all part of your 90 days to get going and your cost structure. Now, using the AWS Marketplace, I can now go into the console and within minutes fire up my infrastructure, and at a cost point of 99 cents or so, let's say a couple bucks an hour, I could spin up a HANA box. And I could put that out there, and I could run some big data calculations. I could try and experiment using a live POC at a very low cost point, because when I don't use it, I don't pay for it. I can blow it away when I'm done. So that's just an example of how provisioning a box very quickly, throwing an AMI on it at a very low cost point, you can do very quick POCs at a nice cost point. So business agility. A lot of the folks that I've worked with in the enterprise space, even prior to Boeing, like I said, getting access to hardware and standing up the core software stack you need to build or to innovate can be expensive and time consuming. And with AWS in the market space, you can choose pre-built stacks that are already there for you. So in this case, I'm just showing you a LAMP stack that you can just very quickly grab and spin up, almost instantly. And so you can go ahead and start building that POC on it. And then, as I said, a big power for me is when I can just blow it away. So I'm really now reduced down to like in a traditional POC or standing up a product very quickly, your cost is in infrastructure. But now this kind of reduces it down to people, down to the developers. So it's really how much time do we want to invest on a particular concept if we want to try something out. And of course, the third one I talked about, architectural flexibility. So you can ratchet things up and down as you need to, so you can scale on demand. So that's another powerful statement as far as taking a new product into the market and then determining how much hardware do I need to buy, what does that architecture look like, and then do I need to increase how I'm leveraging the COTS product so I can scale it up or down. And then if I want to change things out, I have architectural flexibility to do so. So in summary, for Boeing, the AWS cloud has been incredibly useful as a product manager. It's allowed us a great deal of flexibility in some of the solutions and the experiments that we do all the time. It's been an awesome ride with Amazon to watch these new things as they roll out. I'm excited about the market space because I do think it's a paradigm shift that we're going to see as if I put myself outside of the Boeing Company as a software builder. It's going to change the paradigm how you sell and market. Because one of the opportunities here also for some of you would be to become a seller and resell your solution through this channel. So then now your value proposition around your software is going to include a lot of the things that I just talked about, right? Because now you'll be able to sell not just on an annual, let's say right now your sales guys might only be able to sell your solution on an annual contract, right? Or a licensing model or a per seat model. Now they can experiment with some of these, by the hour type models. So it kind of gives your sales folks a little bit more of an edge on how they can sell their solution into the market. Less reasons for a vendor to say no, because they can actually try it out and get the value very quickly. And so it delivers a lot of value on many levels. So that's it for my talk. I don't know if we have time for QA or.
Yeah. We do. So just wanted to kind of quickly recap a bit. So Marketplace is an e-commerce software store. We talked about some of the different angles that you can use the Marketplace, both from the website, from the EC2 console, as well, and tying into other parts of your AWS investments. The consumption-based model is something that we're really keen on and where we hear a lot from customers. You tell us all the time, I love the fact that I can spin down resources in EC2 and S3 and other places and only pay for what I use. And we hear constantly that you want that model brought additionally with the software that you use in AWS. So we're very committed to doing that as well. From Jim's talk, I think one of the big things that came out for me was how the journey evolves and what you learn along the way and how you apply that learning and that iteration and how rapidly you do that. So planning ahead for the journey, but also feeling free to try things and quickly fail because your cost of failure is lower, the pace that you can iterate is faster, and we're really keen on supporting that as well. And lastly, a couple of different use cases, proof of concepts, which we hear all the time. A lot of customers tell us it's great because we can come try a couple of solutions very quickly. We've even had another customer tell me yesterday around a need for a piece of software to accelerate a project, and they quickly did an evaluation of 3 products in about a couple of hours, deployed them, got them running, plugged them into the POC or the system that they were running, saw how they operated, and made a decision, subscribed to the software, deployed it, all got it configured within a matter of hours, and kept their project majorly on track. And then the business and architectural flexibility and agility is really something that, again, we hear from customers quite a bit. So the speed at which you can try solutions and then keep your project going leads you to be faster in getting solutions out and being more strategic to the business. So just a couple of things to leave you with. So I know we finished a bit earlier on the earlier side, but would love to leave the rest of the time for anyone to ask questions. I think there's a mic here, but it's a pretty small room, and hopefully there's questions that we can answer for you. And if you don't want to ask the questions, in a group, we'll stick around clearly for the next 20 minutes or so. You can kind of talk to us personally.
So before we wrap, I want to give everybody, can we give a hand to the AWS staff and everybody put out the song? It's a great conference. Thank you.